Welcome to Reform Thinking. Today we're looking at something that I think really cuts against the grain of our modern culture. We're going to see how three figures from history, John Bunyan, William Cowper, and David Brainerd, saw suffering. For them, hardship wasn't some kind of interruption to their faith, not at all. It was actually a central part of God's plan, a process that, when you meet it with faith, produces something incredibly fruitful. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start by comparing the modern idea of an easy faith with a more, let's say, rugged one from history. Then we'll dive into how affliction really defined Bunyan's journey, Cowper's worship, and Brainerd's mission. And we'll wrap up by looking at the incredible ripple effect their suffering had for generations to come. All right, let's jump right in with a question that really gets to the heart of a pretty common assumption we have today about what it means to be a Christian. This is the real question, isn't it? A lot of modern Western Christianity kind of assumes the goal is safety, comfort. But the guys we're looking at today, they were pulling straight from Scripture, and they had a completely different view. The difference in outlook here is, well, it's stark. On one side, you've got this faith that's all about seeking comfort and avoiding risk at all costs. But on the other, you see faith as a dangerous journey, one that goes up a hill difficulty, and it's a journey that demands everything from you. This second view, that's the one our three guys lived by. So our first example is the one and only John Bunyan. In his famous book, The Pilgrim's Progress, he sets a very, very different expectation for the Christian life. Bunyan's whole point is captured in this one metaphor. See, the only path to life, the narrow way, goes straight up the hill difficulty. There are no shortcuts, no easy ways around it. And for Bunyan, this hardship wasn't a sign that he was on the wrong path. It was proof he was on the right one. And look, this wasn't just Bunyan's own idea. He was just echoing what he saw all over Scripture. Jesus sent his followers out as lambs among wolves. The Apostle Paul said that it's through many tribulations that we enter the kingdom. And the book of Hebrews even frames suffering as God's loving discipline for his own children. This quote from him just nails the logic perfectly. The destination makes the tough journey totally worth it. An easy road that leads to ruin is a complete disaster. But a hard road that leads to God, that's the only one worth walking. Okay, next, let's turn to the poet and hymn writer William Cowper. He found that his own intense personal suffering totally reshaped how he thought about worship. Cowper's life shows this really sharp contrast. You see, a life of ease can produce what's been called trite and chipper worship. Something light, meant to make you feel good for a little bit. But a life of real affliction, that demands something more. It demands a deep, earnest kind of worship that can actually sustain you through the pain and show what God is truly worth. This right here is the heart of Cowper's insight. He was convinced that being satisfied with God while you're suffering is the ultimate display of God's value. Why? Well, think about it. When every other comfort is stripped away and your joy in God still outweighs your pain, that's when he is most glorified. That's what real, authentic worship looks like. You've probably heard this verse from one of his famous hymns. It just offers a completely different way to see our troubles. It teaches that even the darkest clouds, the ones we dread, are, in God's hands, full of mercy that will eventually break open as blessings. All right, a final figure, David Brainerd. He lived a really short, painful life. But his suffering had a massive impact on world missions, and not in spite of his pain, but because of it. Brainerd's life was a living, breathing example of this command from Hebrews. The call for the Christian is to leave the camp, that place of safety and comfort, and go outside to where Christ is, taking on hardship for the sake of the mission. He died at just 29. And you might think, what a tragedy, his work was cut short. But in a way, that's what made his message so loud. By enduring illness and dying so young, he showed everyone that this world is not our final home. His life was this urgent call for other people to stop investing in temporary comfort and just pour themselves out for a cause that has eternal weight. So, how did the suffering of these men create an impact that just kept going long after they were gone? Well, let's talk about the ripple effect. This idea of a ripple effect is such a great way to picture the long-term impact of their lives. Each man's faithful suffering was like a stone dropped in a pond, sending out these waves of inspiration that just continued for generations. And you can see a crystal clear example of this ripple effect right here. David Brainerd's short, difficult life inspired a guy named William Carey, who became a pioneering missionary to India. Then Carey's work inspired Adoniram Judson to become a missionary in Burma. It's a direct line of influence, and it all started with one man's faithfulness in his affliction.
So, when you put it all together, you can see how each man's suffering teaches a really vital lesson. Bunyan shows us that the path itself is difficult. Cowper teaches us that our worship in that difficulty has to be deep and joyful. And Brainerd demonstrates that this difficult path leads us outward, in service to other people.
The combined witness of these three men, it presents a vision of Christianity that's really challenging, especially to our modern desire for an easy life. But it's also a vision that's consistent, it's biblical, and it's just filled with this rugged, unshakable sense of purpose. And so we come all the way back to our original question. What is the purpose of hardship? Based on these lives, the answer seems pretty clear. Hardship isn't an obstacle to God's plan. It's one of his primary tools. It's the instrument he uses to shape our character, to deepen our worship, and to push us outward on his mission for his glory.